Hey, I'm Chris Rolfe, the professional prospector, and today we're going to be talking about black sand. Now, black sand is just something that a lot of prospectors have to deal with because whether you're dry washing or sluicing, panning, running a dredge, a high banker, anything where you're running gravel through, well, you're going to have to be dealing with black sands at the end because almost all the time when you have gold, you're going to have black sand. And so how do you separate out the gold out of the black sand and get a nice clean gold product that you could sell and make some money from? Well, I have a special challenge here today. And actually, I did one video about black sand and I'm gonna link to it right up here. So if you want to check out my first part about dealing with black sand, be sure and check that out. But I'm going to do a second one, and actually I'm going to do a third one. We'll talk about that at the end of this video. But I have today a special allotment of black sand that was sent to me by Rob Roy at Washington Beach Mining. And if you're interested at all in beach mining or black sands for that matter, because that's what beach mining is really all about, be sure to check out Rob's channel. And I'm going to put a picture to it, and I'll put a link to it also. And Rob has just all kinds of good information on beach mining. But Rob sent me this little bit of black sand, and he put 1/4 gram of gold in it. It's concentrate, so there was probably a little bit of gold too with the concentrates. So I'm going to try to get all the gold clean out of this super fine black beach sand, and the gold of course is super fine too. There's not a lot of this black sand here, but this is a real big challenge as far as getting the gold out of it, because the gold is so tiny and the black sand is heavy and tiny too, and it's hard to separate the two. So today we're going to be doing this using our standard techniques for separating black sand and gold, and that includes screening. So we're going to screen this material. Now normally on a coarser material, regular normal gravel, I would have several sets of screens, coarse and fine, but today we're only going to use a 50 mesh screen, so 50 mesh, because I hope that the 50 mesh screen will take out some of the beach sand, and I figure that most of the gold, if not all of the gold, will go right through. So we're going to start out getting a separation with the screen, and then we're going to use a blue bowl, and we're going to use magnets. So our three techniques: screening, blue bowl, magnets, and we're going to try and produce at least 1/4 gram of pure clean gold. And at the end of this video, I will show you that. We'll weigh it up and see how I did, whether I got a passing grade or whether I got a fail. So stick with me. We're going to go through this together, and I'll show you all the things you need to do to separate black sand and get clean gold easily and without too much work. Okay, so stand by. Okay, so our first step is going to be just to open the bag and screen it. This is a pre-mixed bag, just like your basic bag of gold in gravel that you can buy in a zillion places. But the trick with this one is that it's cons, black sand cons from beach mining in Washington, mixed with a known amount of gold. So let me open it up here. And we will put our black sand in here. Always make sure to get everything out of the bag, especially in something like this. All right, I think that's it. Now, if I were doing a larger amount of gold and screening and doing multiple levels of screens, I would screen into a tub. But because this is such a small amount, I'm just going to screen into a pan, just into a large pan. putting water in there until I get a level above the level of the pan or the level of the screen on the bottom. And then just normal screening techniques. Wow. Okay, well, here's the first lesson on really fine stuff like this. Everything went through the screen. So normally when you're separating black sands, you will get stuff that doesn't go through the screen. In fact, when I do the next batch of black sand, we're gonna have multiple screens. But it looks like all I screened out of here was maybe a little bit of organic material that was with the sand. You know, a little bit of stuff from the beach. So, all right, everything went through. Our next step is gonna be the blue bowl. So give me a minute to set that up, and then I'll bring you back in and we'll start feeding the blue bowl. We'll feed it very carefully because, like I say, all this is -50 type gold, so it's gonna be real fine. And I'll talk to you about the tricks of the blue bowl once we get it set up. Hang on. Okay, so I've got the blue bowl going, and I want to talk to you about some of the secrets of the blue bowl. One is to have uniform sized material. That's why I did that screening. It's really important to do screening. If you put coarse material and fine material through at the same time into the blue bowl, it won't work very well. And what will happen is the bigger, coarser pieces of black sand and heavy minerals will stay in the blue bowl. And if you turn up the flow fast enough to blow the bigger pieces through, then the finer, tiny gold will also blow through and out of the blue bowl too. Now, another thing, I've got the blue bowl here sitting on a bucket. So whatever goes through the blue bowl and you know, it actually goes out, it's not really lost, it's just gone into the bottom of the bucket. So I still have it in the bottom of the bucket if for some reason I'm not able to recover it all in the blue bowl. It looks like it's working pretty good. You probably can't see it from your angle, but I've got it to where the black sand is going through and I can see the gold kind of sitting there and not moving so much. And that's kind of the goal in the blue bowl, is to achieve a flow speed that will take the black sand out but leave the gold behind. And in water flows like this, like I say, if you have big pieces and fine gold, it's like, think of it like if you had a rock the size of my fist and a little tiny gold picker, you know, just a little teensy tiny piece. The flow that it would take to blow a rock the size of my fist, a regular rock, would be the same kind of flow that it would take to do this little picker. So what you have to do is screen so that you have the same size pieces, and the flow that it would take to move a little tiny bit of sand, a little rock, a little tiny piece, won't move the gold. See, and that's how the blue bowl works. So I've got the flow up here, and I've just got it right to where the black sand is moving out and the gold is staying behind. And that's really the goal of the blue bowl. And they actually work really well. And they're not very expensive. The only real downside of the blue bowl is that it's pretty slow. It will take me a while to process even the small amount of black sand that I had from the bag that Rob sent me. So anyway, you don't need to watch every minute of this, but you get the feel for the black sand moving through and the gold getting left behind. And basically I'm putting a lot of water on my lawn, but my lawn's really dry. The other thing about blue bowls too that you need to do is it needs to be pretty level. You can't have it well out of balance. It needs to be pretty darn level in order for the thing to work right. And I've got it adjusted just about right. Like I say, I'm pulling a little bit of black sand out at a time. Normally when you run these things in the field, actually you go ahead and use a recirculating pump. You know, you could set this up in a bucket, in a tub, and then you could have your recirculating pump in the tub, and the stuff going out of the bucket would just go in a tub, and then it would get recirculated, and you get a little pump, and it works great. So you don't need to do like I'm doing. This is actually my garden hose coming in here and running this, but like I say, my lawn is really dry. It's been awful dry here, and so the lawn is saying thank you, thank you for the water. Now I'm going to keep doing this. Like I say, I'm not going to record 20 minutes or a half an hour of me fiddling with the blue bowl and getting the material to process through. You don't need to see that. Now that you've seen how it works and what the process is, so you're familiar with it. And I'll be right back when I've got this thing all processed. Okay, there you can see the rim of black sand right around the central little cone in the blue bowl. And I've cleaned through the black sand. I haven't tested yet the black sand in the bucket, but I will collect out the gold that's in the blue bowl, and then also you'll probably notice that there's a little bit of black sand still in there, and that's what we'll use our magnet to clean out, and we'll end up with a nice clean bit of gold from the beach sands that I got from Rob at Washington Beach Mining. Anyway, that's the next step in the process, and I'll get back with you and we'll go through the magnet step as well. I'll collect this out of the blue bowl with a little snuffer bottle. Okay, well, I showed you working with the blue bowl and separating it out, and I snuffered up everything that was in the blue bowl except for just a pinch of black sand and gold that I have here. And our next step is going to be to separate with a magnet. So let's do that. There's a little bit. Okay, I'll put some more water in this pan. And I'm going to dump the material in very carefully. Man, that gold is just so fine. God, I can't even hardly get it out of the bottle. Just shake this up. The gold is just sticking to the sides of the bottle. That gold is just crazy fine. There, I think I've got, there's still a couple of small specks in there, but that's all the gold of any significance. And I'm going to kind of spread this stuff around. Okay, and then I'm going to use a weak magnet. This is not a rare earth magnet that's super strong. This is a, I forget, a ferro whatever magnet that's out of a speaker. It's not super duper strong. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to suck up all the remaining magnetic material out of here, and then I'm going to take this last little bit and I will very carefully pan it and clean it up the last little bit, and then we'll dry it out and weigh it, and I'll show it to you. All right, well, you don't need to see me do this part with the magnet. I've explained to you what I'm going to do, and so I'm going to take a few minutes to do that. And again, I don't want to have this video be like watching paint dry. So the next step, like I say, is going carefully through with a magnet to get all the remaining magnetic materials out. And then I've already seen actually that there's a little bit of heavy white sand with this material, and that is zircon. And zircon's not as dense as black sand, but it's more dense than your average quartz sand, beach sand, that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do is I will do this magnet and I'll show you that, and then we'll take some pictures and I will do the last little bit of panning to get the zircon out, and I will show you that too. But for right now, I'm going to just go ahead and do the magnet part without you and bring you back. So here is the pan when I've finished taking the magnetics out of it. If you look closely, you can see kind of a gray sand and yellow sand. Well, the yellow sand, of course, is gold, but the gray sand is the zircon that I was calling the white, heavy white sand. It's really more gray kind of colored, and there is a tiny bit of black mineral in there that's non-magnetic, and that's what's giving it really the gray color. The zircon is really kind of a beige if you were able to purify it and take it out. But anyways, you can see there's quite a bit of this left in the pan. The circles that are there are basically from the magnet as I was going through and removing all the magnetic materials that were still remaining. Anyway, this is what we've got, and this is what we're taking to the next step of panning to remove the zircon. Okay, we're back, and I'm doing the last little step of removing any non-magnetic material. Like I say, I think it's mostly zircon, but there may be some other non-magnetic heavy materials in here. I'm kind of doing a weird kind of panning, simply because of the nature of this stuff, that it's fine, is that what I'm doing is shaking it all down, which brings the heaviest material, gold, to the bottom, and the lightest material, which would be the zircon and whatever other final remaining heavy materials in there that might be there. It brings those to the top, and then I'm very carefully walking this stuff off the surface backwards into the pan, and then what happens is I get a line of the heavy non-gold material, and then I'm using my snuffer bottle to suck up the not gold stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for you for a minute, and again I'll show you the process and the technique of walking the material off the top back, and then, you know, rather than, like I say, let go on and on with me taking time to do this, once I've shown you the technique and explained it to you, then we'll go to the next step, which is going to be simply drying and finishing up, and then a final weigh-in to see if I got my 1/4 gram of gold or if I just lost too many of these little tiny flecks. So it looks like I've got my quarter gram. So I'm going to shake it again. This again brings the materials that are lighter than the gold to the top. I'm using my finger to kind of concentrate everything and bring it down into that last little corner there, and then I'm just doing trying not to let the thing get, it has to, there has to be enough water in there to do this, and again I'm bringing everything back with my finger, and then shaking it out, and at this point, I don't know if you can see it, but the gold is mostly covered with the non-magnetics, and then I'm just kind of very gently washing it to one side and then washing it to the other. So you can't really see the water, but I'm swirling it this way to wash over it, swirling it that way to wash over it, swirling it this way to wash over it, and I'm effectively walking back the material that isn't gold. I will show you the final gold when I get it done out of this thing and cleaned, but here I'm going to just show you what I've got accomplished here. You see I've got gold up in the corner, there's a little bit of non-gold here, and then I've got a line of this not gold, not magnetic type of material. I'm using the snuffer bottle, and I will pick up this stuff and go through here, and basically by process of elimination, I'm sucking out the heavy material that's not magnetic. Okay, so now you can see what I'm doing there, and I will continue this process until I'm just really not getting a lot of this non-magnetic heavy material out of here. And when I have that, when I've achieved that, I'll have pretty much clean gold. You can kind of see I'm getting here against the wall of the pan. I'm getting a pretty clean product. So stay with me, and I'll bring you in the next step, which is, like I say, I'll have a clean product. I'll take a picture of it, and then we'll let it dry and weigh it up and see where I'm at. One other thing that I want to add with this final finishing step for panning, anytime you're panning super fine stuff, because I deal with super fine stuff that comes out of crushing hard rock ores. Generally speaking, the gold in hard rock veins, it can be coarse, but it often has a lot of really tiny fines, a lot like this stuff. Although this stuff is not only fine and really tiny, but it's very flat particles. If you were to look at this under a microscope, you'd see these things are just flat as could be. And anyway, that's part of what makes it difficult with them. But being flat like that, they have a high tendency to actually float on the surface tension of the water. Now you might say, hey, gold doesn't float, it's heavy. And it is, but it repels water. It doesn't wet like some other things. And so when you get these little tiny pieces, if they get up on the surface tension of the water will actually support the piece of gold and keep it from sinking. So what you need to use is something like this. This is a finished jet drive. There's other products. I'm not saying this is the only one, but there are things like this that increase or decrease the surface tension of the water. They increase the wettability of the particle, and then that'll make it harder for the particle to float. So it's important to have something like this to minimize problems with gold floating away, because you don't want your gold to float. Floating gold, it makes panning really hard, because anytime any air touches it, you know, if you don't have something, the gold will just up and float. So good thing to remember in the process and technique of processing really tiny flat particles of gold. So here is the final gold that I got, and you can see it's all down in the corner there. You can also notice, if you look closely, that there's a whole bunch of little specks just spread out all over the place. It's not all down in the edge of the pan. Anyway, I've gotten it down like this, and the next step really is just to let it dry overnight and give it away and see where we're at. Okay, so here it is, the final tally for the dried gold from the beach sand. And this is actually a carat scale that weighs to 1/100th of a carat. And so you have to multiply the whole thing by 0.2. So 1.26 times 0.2 comes out to be 0.252 grams. Now, this would imply that I got 0.002 of a gram more than what Rob Roy put into the black sand. And, you know, I don't know that my scale really is fully accurate to a couple thousandths of a gram, but I think it's pretty accurate to the hundredths of a gram. So 0.25, which is what he added to the black sand. It seems like I did get it all. So that's pretty good. And it just shows, I got to tell you, this is some of the most difficult gold that I've ever had to process out of black sand. It was a real challenge, and I understand why Rob has to work so hard at it, and why it's such a challenge for anybody who wants to tackle getting gold out of beach sands. But it's an interesting thing. So my thanks, I want to say thanks to Rob for sending me this sample and giving me the challenge of having to recover a 1/4 gram of gold out of his beach sand. So I'm glad you enjoyed that interesting video about processing beach sands and getting gold out of the beach. You know, beach is someplace that most people don't think of as a good place to go mine gold. But hey, as Rob Roy has proved, there's some great gold out there to be had at some beaches. And it's not just Nome. You know, there's places in California and Washington and other places like that. So anyway, if you want to become a better prospector and learn to find more gold for yourself and come home, you know, with a good amount of gold every time you go out, well, I wrote a book about how to find more gold. It's called Fistful of Gold, and that's what it's about, getting fistful of gold for your efforts prospecting. So stand by, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my book and how you can buy a copy if you're interested.
Okay, so I wanted to tell you a little bit more about my book. I wanted to be able to share the knowledge that I've gained about finding gold and how to be successful. And so I spent years literally writing this book, Fistful of Gold. It's more than 350 pages long, which is why I say it's an encyclopedia of everything you need to know about finding your own gold. I've sold more than 8,000 copies and I've got a lot of really great feedback on it. It just is the most complete book on the market. It has information about finding gold that literally is not available in any other book that you're going to find for prospectors, because I took technical stuff from geologists and other mineral scientists, and I've translated that into language that the average guy can understand. You don't need a PhD to go out and find gold, but the information that scientists have learned over recent decades can be of a lot of help to people. So it's in this book. Uh, if you're interested about finding gold, panning, sluicing, nugget detecting, dry washing, the geology of gold deposits and how they form, it's all in here. And like I say, it's more than 350 pages long. So if you'll just go to the description underneath this video, you can take a look. I've got a link in there to take you to Amazon, to the site where the book is sold. And I think you'll really enjoy it. Take a look at all the people who've commented on this and have really liked the book. It has a very, very high rating for a book. And also, I have a website, my own free website that you can take a look at. I've got all kinds of information on here about doing research and how to find gold, a lot of good information, stuff that basically couldn't fit into my book. And so I put it on this website, and I have a link also for that in the video description. So take a look in the description, and you can click on the link, and it'll take you to my website. And finally, if you like this presentation, I've got a lot more coming out. Here's a 3.5 ounces of gold that I found a couple years back in one area. I've got a lot more of these videos coming on gold, gemstones, hard rock, placer, a lot of metal detecting. There'll be lots of metal detecting stuff. So if you really enjoyed this, click the subscribe button and then tick the notification bell off, and YouTube will let you know when I publish new stuff. And hit the like button as well. And please comment on these videos, because I'm interested in what you have to say, and I promise to answer any questions you have. So if you are wondering about anything, or think maybe I didn't cover something thoroughly enough in a video, then let me know, and I'll be happy to try and help you out and give you whatever information you need. So thanks a lot, and hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you again real soon.